3, 4. There you go.
So this week on my Sunday chats, I am very excited to have my good friend Cameron Rasmussen from, well, you're from a few places. Which place do you consider yourself from at this point?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm from Canada. It's more exotic, even when you're geographically not that far away from Nova Scotia, which is my province, my home province. I tell someone here in New York that I'm from Nova Scotia, and they're like, "Whoa, that's cool!" So it's a pretty easy card to play for sparking some interest in a conversation. So yeah, I stick with Canada.
For some reason, it's just like a cool place to say you're from.
Yeah, like it's a lot of people are usually like, if they've even heard of it, which usually they haven't, to be honest. But most people are like, "Oh, it's beautiful up there," and it is. I mean, yeah, you've been there one time,
Yeah.
so.
But yeah, I want to give you a proper introduction. So Cameron is a guitarist, very like professional guitarist. So I was his roommate in Berklee for a majority of the time that I was there, and most recently he's been really killing it in the Broadway pit game, which I'd love to talk about that because it's not easy to break into that. It's like kind of coveted. Those chairs are like coveted, and once they get filled, sometimes they're filled for years and years. So just like filling in for people, like how did you get to that point where you could at least get some of the sub gigs?
I got super lucky is what it boils down to. As pretty much everyone does when they move to a new city or they're just trying to break into a gig in a place that they want to have, they work kind of, random jobs, right? So I had a brief stint at a Bacharach schools, like teaching kids. It was out in Port Washington, and
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. I was there very briefly, and it wasn't any like thing of not liking it. I just couldn't really do the commute. It ended up being super far. But one of the guys I talked to there as I was just meeting him, he was like, "So you from around here? Where are you from?" And I was like, "Well, I'm from Canada, and I met this guy through a teacher from Berklee that I had for one class, and this guy that I was introduced to randomly was in a crisis for people to fill in for him at Aladdin the musical." Wow. And I was still living in Boston. I mean, you remember I was with that wedding band.
Oh my gosh, the wedding band, yeah.
I was still living there doing that gig, and this meeting in New York was just happened to be we had a week off from gigs in Boston, so I just kind of came here to hang and meet people if I could, and that's when it happened. I just got lucky, met this guy who really needed people to cover him, and then everything kind of came from that. After like I was like, "Hey, so you email people or you meet people through friends that you've made," and it was like, "Hey, so I've been subbing at Aladdin for this guy," and that lets people know like you're not a noob. You can actually function on this kind of gig, and
right.
And it snowballs from there. So that's how it started. But it really it's not like I did anything super amazing. Like I think it just kind of it stands on the fact I got super lucky in the first place to start doing it. But anyway, sorry, I kind of breezed over the guy I was meeting at this teaching gig, and I was explaining how I got this gig. I was like, "Yeah, I got super lucky." He was like, "Yeah, I've actually never heard this story before. I've been trying to do it for like 30 years, and I haven't been able to get into it." And this is a guy who's like grown up in the area. So he's like, "Yeah, I've actually not heard this kind of story of getting into it before because I don't know anyone who's doing it." So it was kind of like a moment where I was like, wow, like it even more set in how lucky I was to be doing it in the first place.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. The wedding band thing. How many people do you think graduate from Berklee and then spend 1 to 2 years in a wedding band?
A lot.
It's like it's like a submarket of like wedding bands in the Massachusetts, Boston area that are staffed by Berklee students. And it's either people seem to continue with it and like really like it, or some people are just like, get me out. It's just like you talk to some people who are doing that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I've got 7 more weddings in the next week.
Absolutely. And even kids, like I used to be super jealous of kids we went to school with because they were already in a GB band while we were in classes. And I was like, why can't I be doing that? I like money. I like playing. So yeah. But it's still a big thing around New York too. They just don't call them GB bands, but that's another gig people like to do around here.
For sure. It is good money. It's like, I mean, what they charge for a band is crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But the good old days.
The good old days in Boston. And then you moved to New York and then you were on tour for a while. And when I say a while, I mean like how long was it?
I was a year and a half without stopping.
That's insanity.
Yeah,
that's insanity.
But, however, so it should, because some Arch Echo fans are going to be watching this, and so it's not the same as those kinds of tours at all. So by comparison, it's like a little more cushy. Like, here's my wife.
Hello.
Getting home from the hospital. This is Julia. Let me. Where was I? What was I talking about?
The tour and it was Something's Rotten, the musical.
Yeah. So the tour was for this show called Something Rotten, the musical, and it sounds, when you say it initially, to be on tour for a year and a half, it sounds like a lot more labor intensive than I think it really is, because they would like pay for your flights between cities, and our certain contract for the show like dictated we couldn't be in a city for less than a week, but it could be more. It could be more than a week. So it wasn't like overnight, one place to the next, for different shows, which some tours are. But it was just a certain contract wasn't like that. So it wasn't so brutal as we were doing like overnight on a bus to the next gig and so on and so forth. So it was like we actually had time to see the places we were going to, which was only in the United States, which wasn't a bummer because I hadn't been to like most of the states. But it would have been nice to play at home in Canada, in Halifax. But we didn't. It was only the states that we did.
I mean the list of cities was just insane. I don't think there's a place you haven't been. Like in the U.S., there's nothing left.
There's only, I think I've been to 48 states.
Wow.
I haven't been, I've been to all, 47. I haven't been to Hawaii or Alaska because we didn't do anything there. And some of them were just from driving through. We didn't do gigs in Louisiana or Arkansas, like any of the southern states. We didn't do any gigs there. But we did have to drive through. I think we went from Memphis to Atlanta, and we kind of hit a few of those states, and like we weren't there for more than like an hour or half an hour to drive through them, but I can say I was in them.
But I wanted to go back to when you said like you were lucky, because I think that sort of discounts you a little bit, because I think one of the cool things about you as a musician is that you are one of the hardest working people I've ever met. So like back in the Berklee days, Cam would practice. Like now I think as an adult, you look at practice as like something that's very important and you should do it and you got to make time in your schedule. But believe it or not, sometimes like as a college student or as a high school student, I think some people realize that a little too late, and they spend a lot of that time that's like super precious not doing that. And then they get to college or after college and they're like, I wish I had the time. And then they make good effort to put in the time, but they also have life. So it gets frustrating. I see like people and like sometimes students getting frustrated that they like have a really like burning passion at this point, but their lives just don't have the time anymore.
Absolutely.
So I think it's so cool. Like what made you in the Berklee days, like who inspired you, or do you have any examples that like where did that effort, that ethic come from? Where did that work ethic come from? Because I witnessed it, and it was like every day, like hours and hours. And I think that's why you are where you are, because as soon as the opportunity struck, you were like, of course I can play this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the work ethic, like the mindset, came from. I mean, a big one is my family, specifically my mother's side of the family. Everyone is in one way or another working in like law enforcement, and like not just like as a cop or something, like kind of like high level federal law enforcement jobs, like in the army and stuff like that. And FBI, one of my uncles. And I think it just comes from like, you know, to be in those positions, it requires you to have discipline. Like you just have to be disciplined to do anything for your daily routine. When you're in like training and, you know, in the FBI Academy and like the stuff you get put through, not to say that physically that's anything related at all to being a musician, but it does require the same mindset for being disciplined in your craft. I would say that is probably the biggest initial place that that mindset came from, with, you know, regiment, like, you know, having a regimen, like having like a specific timetable for your day is like this hour to this hour I'm practicing this, and you know, this hour, like 12 to 1 I'm eating lunch, and you know, 2 to 3 I'm practicing sight reading. Like I would lay out everything like that, and it's got supplemented later on, I mean, by, you know, people I look up to, and like I'm a big fan of like people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like I don't know, like, I mean, he's a good example, like, because if you listen to him talk about like when he was coming up as like a bodybuilder, he was like so laser focused on like his goal, and like he would set up a well thought out plan to achieve that goal. And like, you know, that goes with like how you plan your day out for like time spent on this and that, and so on and so forth. So like things like that kind of, I guess, supplemented it. But
that's such a sick point, because that's exactly the same for me, and especially like the past 4 or 5 years since leaving Berklee, most of the people that like inspire me to push harder with music are completely outside of music.
Yeah,
it's like good athletes that I see, and that's a lot of it. Like good athletes, or like, I don't know, like content creators who like work really hard at what they do. It's just like, instead of focusing on like musicians, because I wish I discovered more music these days. I don't have time to like find too much more music. Same, but I do like follow some sports, and just like seeing the dedication that takes. That's huge.
Yeah, actually, since we're kind of on the thing with sports, I actually had a discussion about like how much to practice, kind of like on a daily basis kind of thing, with a friend here in New York one time. And an analogy that I've found myself warming up to even more like over time is you can't practice like 1 billion hours every day for the rest of your life. It's just, and it's not realistic. And even, you know, like I really love like the violin player Izzo Perlman, and in an interview with him, he's like, if you're practicing more than 10 hours a day, it's like not even helpful at that point.
Yeah.
So the analogy I think of is that you're like as a musician, you should think like a boxer prepares for like a title match, or, you know, like any match really, but like it usually to be thinking of a big match that they have to prepare for, where you're not going to be dieting and working out as many hours and as hard and anything like that as you are when you're preparing for like a huge match. So it should be the same for you as a musician. So it's like, when I was preparing for Berklee auditions, actually, was probably, I don't think I'll ever practice as much as I did leading up to that. I like kind of quit high school for 2 weeks, it wasn't at a great time, because it was like ramping up for exams. But my mom was like, no, you're doing this. We're getting into Berklee. It's happening. So
her.
So would wake up at like 7 a.m., practice every hour from 7 a.m. Like it was immediately like running out of bed to the basement to start practicing. And
oh my
I
gosh.
had like a set, I'm doing an hour on this, hour on that. Lunch, I had 12 to 1. I don't even think I was really showering much for these 2 weeks, which is kind of gross. And then I'd practice like 1 to 6.
Because his hair was like super long then.
Oh yeah, that was the glory days. You should insert old picture of the long hair.
I miss it every day.
But yeah, it was like practice after lunch until like 6 or 7, eat supper for like an hour, and I had it budgeted like I can't go longer, and then practice from like 7 to like I guess it'd be until like 9 or 10 or something, and go to bed. So it was like about 14 hours every day that I had like set out.
Oh.
And I did. And then it was after those 2 weeks, it was go to Boston and do the audition.
And you didn't get an injury?
I didn't get an injury, no, because
gosh, that's a miracle. Well, you were doing your stretches and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not huge on those anymore, but I was very meticulous about I have to do like this one before I play and after I play, which is still very good stretch to do.
Yeah.
And some other ones that I'll do from time to time now, but
I mean, there's some Berklee guitarists who quit like anywhere between freshman and sophomore year. They just had to stop. Drummers too. They would just stop. They would just have to leave the school because they could not physically play anymore. Because they just ramped it up so fast when they got there without like thinking about technique or stretching or warming up that they don't realize that like an injury is not like a 2-week thing. Like it's you're just
and
done.
That's like a real injury is no joke. And that's something that kind of bugs me, to be honest, because I know at least one person that was there when we were at Berklee who like walked into the calf one day at lunch, and she had an ice bag like on her wrist or something, and I was like, what happened to you? And she was like, oh, I just overplayed. And I was just like, I don't know, like I've never overplayed to the point where I got an injury, and I've probably practiced like at least 6 hours a day more than you do like every day, and I don't get injured from it. So I mean, in those cases, I think it's like there's something about the technique that hasn't been addressed that they're kind
That's true.
ignoring. Yeah.
If you just go for it without thinking about it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, like everyone gets fatigued, right? That's part of being a human. Like you can't play forever and not get fatigued. But if you're like hurting yourself because, you did like X amount of hours in a day, it's
right.
There's just something that should be addressed, I think.
Yeah. So, let's see. What else do I want to talk about today?
There's so many things.
Like this, and this conversation is not contrived, but like we talk to each other a lot, so it's not like I'm learning all of this now. So I'm trying.
We're staging it for everybody. We have a script that we agreed upon.
I am Kim. No, yeah. So Berklee, practicing all that stuff. In Berklee, we had a band, Sound Struggle, that was, I think, really important for me in that it kind of was the first time that, because I was into metal. I was into like Dream Theater metal, but jazz and metal were separate in my mind, I think, at that point. And it was
Fair enough.
It was like, if you play jazz, you do that. If you play metal, you do that. I don't know who, like, at the time was really meshing them super well.
That's
like,
the thing.
There were some artists, and more recently, it's become really popular to be throwing major 7 chords in your prog songs.
Right.
But just
and everyone has a saxophone solo in their prog tune now.
Like Dirty Loops didn't have any metal elements, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
And Snarky Puppy didn't have any metal elements yet. So those bands didn't exist. So Cam came up with the idea of like, I'm gonna get 3 that we didn't hire them. He like asked just people around, just 3 horn players, like a bassist, 2 guitarists, one of which was Adam Rafowitz, and a well, I said bass drummer. We had a drummer, and then he had a keyboardist. I don't think I was the first keyboardist though.
No, so the whole ramp up to that first session where we actually had horn players was
there were a lot of members. I think when all is said and done, there might have been like 20 members of Sound
It was
Struggle.
a big rotating door like at the beginning for sure.
Yeah.
There was, I think I asked like 2 or 3 dudes, three different dudes to come in and just like read the charts that I had made for some of the songs that are on the first album,
which existed. Like he made charts for every member. It was crazy.
Yeah, but it continued to be like the most efficient way to kind of get stuff recorded and done. With so many people in the band, because like,
I found this in my room the other day. This is the score for Suspended.
Oh no!
It's the whole score. It's
oh my goodness!
Drums, I think. Drums are there.
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we don't mess around.
You did this for like the horns.
Everybody.
Yeah. Yep. Everything's here.
I think I might have left out the vocals.
Yeah, no vocals, but
because
I found it. I don't know why I have it, but
I'm actually kind of suspicious. You stealing my scores, bro?
I'm stealing your scores. But yeah,
that's funny.
Making the most of that Berklee printing center here.
Oh yeah, man. I felt like I was the only person doing like scores as frequently.
Yeah, you and like film score majors probably.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Mine weren't as formatted as nicely.
But yours were for fun. Though. Not many people do that for fun in their like progressive rock band.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Well, I mean, no one makes charts like for anything really. It's just like here, learn this recording by ear, and then
do you remember the first time that I think Sound Struggle's sort of like coolness as an idea got validated? Do you remember that?
The first
time
rehearsal.
No, it was that basement show.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So Alston, of course, the undesignated dorm of Berklee, Alston.
For anyone who didn't want to live on campus goes to Alston.
Goes to Alston. That train ride, Adam included, and so there's a ton of basement shows, a ton of house shows. A lot of fun. Like it'll be like 4 to 5 bands, usually pretty different styles. And that night, we did it, and I just remember like the kids were like their heads just going like, just like because no one was expecting that in Prague at the time. It just wasn't. I don't know. Thank You Scientists had it, but they weren't going very metal.
Yeah, not as heavy.
They weren't going heavy, so it was like extreme. And in the beginning, of course, the songs were like the light switch thing, where it was like metal, extreme heavy to complete. Like if you go listen to the first album, it's just like boom, boom, one to the next. And,
that's one of those things that we were like learning. Or at least I was like, I didn't know it. The whole thing was like just a whole learning experience for me, like because I didn't know how to record stuff like in the beginning. Like I didn't know how to really do any of that. And
I think I stepped in. I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah, and I was
actually like, can I do this? And you said yes, and then that was a really good learning experience. Like making that first album. Like it doesn't sound the greatest. And the songwriting got better on the next one because we worked together. But it was important. Like that's what I tell anyone who's like a student or just anyone who like aspires to make things. I'm like, you got to go through the motions a couple times. Like you have to get from point A to point B and finish this thing and put it out. And if it's not like the Mona Lisa, congratulations. Mine wasn't either, you know?
Exactly.
Like you got to make those things.
Yeah, I think I saw something recently about like it was like a Elon Musk quote or something, and you know, like they were talking about like past failures in anyone's like career or whatever, and he's just like, you know, I'd rather like have failed and gotten better at something than, you know, trying to cover it up and like feign like I've been perfect forever. And I mean, like the first album has like some nostalgic things I love and some things that like make me cringe to hear. But really, like regardless of like how much people hate it or love it, Germany loves it, which I think is awesome. But
hey, we were in the first time we performed in Switzerland. It was on this Plini tour, and we were at some festival. It was the weirdest show of that tour because like it was a festival, and they put the Prague show. Like it almost seemed like they put it on like before the doors opened. Like it was so early in the day that we just like did this thing for like 20 people, and then we were done, and then like the festival started. It was very odd. But this guy comes up and he's like, "Dude, sound struggle," and we're like, "What? Like this is crazy!" Like he was very stoked just to like make that connection.
Yeah,
so, they exist. The people who found it were like, "I like this."
Yeah. Like it was the biggest thing to me nowadays. Like I actually just told someone I was on the phone with earlier today, like how the first one we made, like most of what I know about like production and mixing and recording and stuff didn't actually like come from my second major at Berklee. It came mostly from working with you.
Yes. That's what Berklee is. Like that's what Berklee is you're gonna get in a big room with like hundreds, thousands of kids who like want to do this thing, and you're going to end up linking up, and you're going to end up like making something that sucks or like kind of doesn't, or like you're going to give yourself a minor in production just by doing anything.
Just by doing it. Just like, you just got to do it.
I think I have like a bachelor's degree in production and engineering from Berklee, and like a minor degree in like doing the band thing from like the 3 or 2 or 3 different bands I was in the Berklee days.
Absolutely, yeah. It's what you have to do. Like you can get obviously plenty. Like as long as you know who to take your classes from, I think is a big important thing for going there. But probably the biggest important thing is to meet people and work on stuff outside of class. But also
and be a good person.
Yeah.
Like be nice, be responsible.
Don't be a huge pain in the butt to be around, and don't have a huge ego, and et cetera. But
be confident enough to like put yourself out there and all that. Well balanced. Teaches you to be like more balanced. Because the like the bad sides of you will hinder your growth there, and you'll see that when you're in a project, like the parts of me that don't add to like a group project really made this thing not go the way I wanted it to. And so you like learn like, okay, I'm gonna rehash that side of myself.
Yeah, and I think that every band, every athlete, like every profession, anyone who's been successful in any profession has failures that people either do or don't know about, but it's about like where you get to, right? So we're both doing just fine, and we have like our albums or other projects we put out that were like kind of maybe we were like meh, or maybe they were like
I have them on my wall. I have them on all of them, like anything that I made, because I'm like that was important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's the album here where I like literally learned how to use a DAW at all, and and that if without that I wouldn't be like I want to do like the Berklee music production thing or like continue making things. So important.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about Rise, just because it was, I think, the biggest project you and I ever went through together, and it we were saying, it's like so important to like for your growth.
Yeah,
but it pretty much took like a calendar year, I think.
Yeah,
to be written and then mastered.
Yep, all the way from beginning to end. It was like just within a year, I think.
Yeah.
Because we that again, talking about like how I've learned so much about how to do this stuff from you and from doing this, is that we kind of, I didn't know how to do it at the time, even then after we did the first album. So over the summer, it was like, okay, we've played our stuff and we've recorded. Now, Joey, do everything. and like even at the time I felt bad about it, but it was like I don't know like how to help you anymore. Like we helped with like editing from what like I knew how to do.
Yeah, on Rise you like did a lot of drum editing.
Yeah,
and you edited your own guitar parts, and yeah, that was super helpful because for some reason like the editing was I don't know if I've ever done a project that just made me want to end it all. Just the editing of that, like sitting there because it was June to it was like early May to mid June in an air conditioned room in my house in like Placid. But there were 2 editing stations in the same bedroom, which was like maybe 10 by 11 feet or something.
Yep.
So and just the heat that tracking and editing and like working brings to a room that's already hot. It's just
we could not have done that without those 2 fans your fam had kicking around.
Those fans,
we probably would have died of asphyxiation. It wasn't.
And our saxophonist Michael Bosnick, my absolute favorite person in the world,
boy,
just sat in a corner. He was like, "Yeah, I'll come and track, man." And he just sits on this chair for a month and plays and rages at League of Legends nightly,
like all nonstop.
And then he tracks all of his parts in like the last 48 hours of being there.
The Iwi part, yeah,
the Iwi part. Because we tracked the sax at Berklee when he was like on no sleep.
There's after like a week.
Somewhere there's this file. I think I need to put it in the video in this if we find it. But it's this take of Michael Bosnick finishing like Perpetual Motion, the song, and he just does the last song, and it's the sound of just like a body and will and spirit just giving it up, and he just goes like last note. But it's like into a reverb because the sax was into reverb. And it's just the sound of like this guy who's like going through finals and is pulling all-nighters and is like on the last leg of like a film scoring major. Who also has to track a whole album of saxophone stuff from like 2 to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It was so funny watching that dude like just sit there and be raging on League of Legends while we're like editing the drums.
What was funny was during the sax recording sessions, we had to be like hype men because he was on such low sleep. It was just like, you sounded so good, and he did sound good, but he was good. Yeah, he was tired, so we had to be like, oh, it's so great, you're gonna rip this next solo.
Yeah, I mean, I think arguably the best known song from the album, well, it's either Perpetual Motion or Rise, either of them. But for Rise, I mean, that whole melody in the beginning, he like really did a great job, and it's how the song starts, and
it's how it's that's how we wanted.
But if you're ever listening to anything off of Rise, just know that the saxophonist is like seconds away from falling asleep standing up, and it's the funniest thing to think about.
For every
if you know Michael. I'm definitely having him on here at some point.
Absolutely,
his adventures the last couple of years going to like Japan and stuff. And I need to talk to him about that week at the end of Berklee. He's essentially like homeless, I think, and also doing finals.
Absolutely,
it's got to be the best story.
Just call him right now. We should do it. We love you, Mike.
I got to get into that with him. But so that was Rise. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot of stuff, and since then you've been working a long time on that third one. Which is
so I mean the main so if there are any Sound Struggle fans who are actually waiting for the next thing that we said was going to come out way back when, the main thing that's kept it from coming out is the tour we discussed where I was on the road for a year and a half, but I actually had a mobile mission control to like finish writing and record the demos while I was on the road, which was kind of difficult to figure out the logistics to do, and then other jobs after and before the tour to make money and stay alive. So those things kind of slow down a project, as you can imagine. But finally it's taking shape, and hopefully I think I'm pretty close to being able to like do some announcements about it, and I just need a few solos from y'all.
How long is it?
Do you really want to know?
I really want to know.
Let's see. Let me think. It's at least, I think it's just under about 2 hours of music.
Oh my gosh. That's going to be crazy.
I think it's 115 minutes of music.
Oh my gosh.
And that's including all segues and stuff between stuff. So
so cool.
Yes, and it turned into this because I don't. Well, actually, I don't know why it turned into this. I should. But it is a concept album, which I haven't actually said before. But it kind of turned into that just by accident. So
everyone's got to do one.
Hey, you got to do one.
I haven't made one yet, but
I will never do it again.
Yeah, and that's what everyone says. That's it. I did.
Don't need to do that again. Yes, exactly. But so that's going to be, it's exciting. I finally have I got a ringer to do the vocals because no one wants to hear me do vocals anymore.
Oh, speaking of vocals, you just put out this video.
Yes, Leave On.
Which was crazy. And I was telling you this on the phone, but the singer, his name's Adam, what's his last name?
Adam Pascal. Shout out to Adam.
Who I didn't realize, but he sang one of my favorite songs as a kid. For some reason, I think in like 2008, I played this musical, Kiss Me, Kate. So I started getting involved in like Broadway stuff. And so some of the I was like 12. So like there would be these like mentors above me who I was working with. They were like, oh, you like this Broadway stuff. Like you should listen to this one, this one, this one. And so someone gave me the CD of Rent.
Yep.
And the one song, Glory, I thought was just the catchiest thing. It was the catchiest, like melody, chords, just the combination of it, which is, that's my favorite thing is music, is the combination between good chords plus good melody, how they come together. Yeah. And I don't know, it just clicked. It just clicked.
Yeah, I love that song.
And now you did a video with him. So I'm super jealous.
Yeah, I met, for anyone who doesn't know, I met him on everything comes back to that tour I did. So I met him on the Something Rotten tour and he was playing Shakespeare.
Wow.
And so, everyone was really excited to work with him because he was original cast of Rent, which pretty much everybody knows at least something from Rent if they're not huge into it.
Yeah.
Also, he's in School of Rock, which I actually just rewatched, and it's so good still. It holds up so well.
What did he play in that?
He's the guy who's the lead singer of No Vacancy.
Oh my gosh.
Heal me, I'm heart sick. I'm hungry.
I not know this? I just watched that recently. I never knew that.
That's him, Adam. After I knew him, like to a certain extent on the tour, like because I didn't want to fanboy right away. After I knew him for like a few months, I was like out eating with him somewhere, and I was just like, Adam, I love School of Rock, man.
You're so good at that though. Like just like making those connections with people, but not like overdoing it, and just like just being friends, like without making it completely awkward. Like the connections that this guy has within 5 minutes, like of being in a social situation, would absolutely make your head spin. I don't know how you do it.
Well, you flatter me. I felt like I wasn't being very eloquent or. I felt like I was being pretty heavy-handed in that circumstance.
Well, you mentioned to me once how the pit and the actors don't always like form this like social bond or whatever. But you were like, well, no, I'm gonna go talk to them. I'm just gonna go talk to them. And
we actually
why don't people do that?
Exactly. It's like this thing that I think it's just kind of accepted because we sit in a hole like for the whole show, and they're kind of separate from the band.
That would have been me. That would have been me.
Yeah,
I have trouble doing that.
A tour is a little different than on Broadway because you do have to travel with everybody like from city to city. So it's automatically you're going to have a little bit more contact with the cast. But even some of the guys on the road were just like, yeah, I don't really hang with the actors. And I have so many friends from that cast who I talk to pretty regularly. And we lived together for a year and a half. So,
yeah.
But I just I
Yeah,
want to hang with people.
We're walking down the street together in New York, and you introduced me to the actor who plays in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Was that Rob McClure?
No,
there was the
person who dresses in drag in that musical.
Chicago.
What's the character?
He plays Mary Sunshine.
Yeah, and it's just like he's like, "Hello, Cam," and it's not like, "Oh, hey, Cam." It's like, "My boy." It's so great.
He's such a sweetheart. I mean, like that had happened completely by chance again because he happens to take the A train home after the show. Yeah. So after subbing in there, because I don't play there as like the guy. I'm just a sub when I play, and I would see them on the train. Like maybe like by the third time, I just went and saw them while we were waiting at Columbus Circle for the train to come. I saw them on the platform. I was like, hey, you guys do the show with me. Like, so, I mean, then you just keep riding the train with them if you keep working. So, good That's times.
So cool. That's so sick. Oh, man. Well, I want to let you and your wife get use of your apartment back. So, I won't.
Hey, it's all good. We got to go eat the loaf of bread I just made.
Yes, you have to go eat that bread. But obviously we should have like a part 2 at some point because I feel like we talked about 20% of what we could have.
Well, you just kind of interviewed me. We got to talk about more Joey next time.
I like this. The whole point of the series is like someone who I really like. When you enjoy someone, you just want the world to know like why that person is great. Like last week with Jesse, like I knew that Jesse had made like a really cool step in his life that I thought was like surprising to me as like a brother that he like grew in that way. So I was like, I think this is a story worth telling. So just the fact that you're like your hard work has paid off, and because of the hard work that you continually do, like that's what's gonna make you like set for life, not like luck. It's just that you've preparing for each of those opportunities for like literally decades at this point. So
you got to work hard at anything that you do is what it boils down to.
So, but yeah, thanks for being on here, and
absolutely
love you, man. And
love you too.
I'll see you soon.
I'll see you on part 2.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Peace.